everybody, and welcome to the Sovereign Village Project. I want to use this video to posit a new idea, which is an instant food forest. Some of you in the gardening space may be familiar with the idea of an instant garden where you're layering cardboard and lots of organic matter like straw, hay, grass, manure, things like that, and planting right into it, and boom, you have an instant garden that's grown in a regenerative way. In the same way, any forest you walk into is already a food forest, and we need to start thinking of it this way. And I really want to illustrate this. I think this is a really cool place to illustrate it. So here we have where I started to clear out and plant a garden, and you can see it's a standard garden. We've got our tomatoes and squash, potatoes. We've got lots of comfrey, big, nice, healthy comfrey from our friends over from Pastor's Farm. We got a neighbor's chicken growing over there. She likes to come and visit us and say hello. She's become one of our best friends, follows us all around, and she's not even our chicken. Occasionally she'll leave us an egg. But anyway, I started clearing out this garden area, and then I stopped right there and I left it wild because I realized I don't know if I can even compete. I don't think my intentional planting is going to be able to compete with what this untouched area is already producing. And since then, I've just started managing it by just taking manure and composting, adding it to the plants I like. But I want to show you how much food is already growing here, both for animals and for humans, because it's important to remember that your garden feeds your animals as well as you. So we need to stop differentiating. A lot of things that look like a weed, even if they're not edible to you, which they may be, they're also edible, often edible for your animals, and oftentimes they're a great food source or a great medicine. Even things like thistles and such can be really great, and of course grasses and clovers and all of that. But let's start at the very bottom. We've got yarrow, we've got clovers, we've got both human foods and animal foods, we've got medicinal plants, as well as food growing down here at this very level. I've also found a lot of edible mushrooms. I haven't started to harvest those yet because I haven't really worked on my identification yet, but there's a couple I'm 90% sure are edible. Not sure enough to eat them, but we'll count those. So we've got this ground layer here, just like you would find in a planted food forest. And there's a lot of food down here. There's a lot of food and there's a lot of medicine. In this 5-foot radius that I'm looking at, I can see probably 3 or 4 edible plants just at this first level. And I'm still learning my identification. There's still a lot of plants I just don't know yet. And then we come up to more of this mid-level, and we start to see things like wild lettuces and blackberries. Here we have a blackberry bush. It's mostly gone now, but this was producing really heavily earlier. There was a lot of fruit at this level, and it's climbing up these layers. And look at this. You probably wouldn't expect one of the kind of mid-level, almost an overstory plant in this environment to be a lettuce, but that's a wild lettuce, and it's gone to seed, and I'm allowing it to go to seed because this one did really well. It produced really well in the wild, and so I'm going to save those seeds, and I'm going to kind of work on domesticating them because they grow well here, they're pest-free, they taste delicious, and look how abundantly it produces. And then we have all of these sumac plants, which make a delicious berry. Which can be used as a spice, can be made, you can make wine with it, you can make a lemonade-like drink. It's got a sour, tangy flavor, which is great because here in this part of the South, we can't grow lemons or any of those tangy fruits, so that takes the place of that. You can use it in jams and jellies. The leaves can be smoked. They have a really delicious flavor. They're a great way to stop smoking, or a great way to start. People will mix them in with cannabis or with tobacco, and they have a really fruity flavor to the smoke. The Native Americans use them, and supposedly they were supposed to have some effect on dreams. I have not noticed that effect. I gave it a try, but they do taste really good. It's almost like you can use them in a joint or something for flavor, if that's your thing. And then of course we have our overstory trees. They're more in the back, but there are things like oak, which are edible human food. Oaks grow acorns, and acorns are food for us. We just have to leach them first to get the tannins out, but they're a phenomenal source of protein and many other incredible nutritional benefits. And they're out of season, but we have a lot more plants that I can't show you in here. There's wild garlics, there's all sorts of things that come up at different times of the season. You've got your usual plantain and all of your normal kind of yard-like herbs. They don't thrive really in this environment because it's a food forest. There's not a lot of room for them. But all this to say, here's a food forest that produces abundantly, and I didn't plant it. This is just what grows wild here. And now what I'm really curious to see is how this responds in the next year or so to my management. I'm going to take this existing system and just try to manage it more for my benefit and really push the plants that do well, and then intersperse plantings in with it. I'll start to add in more domesticated fruit trees like pear trees and cherries, and I'll also look at what's growing well here, like these wild lettuces, and I'll say, okay, so I should try greens here because it's already growing. I'll look at the blackberries, and I'll say, okay, blackberries are doing well. Let me try some thornless varieties. Let me try some raspberries. Let me try some similar plants and see how they respond. Same with the sumacs. I'll look at sumacs, and I'll kind of look at the leaf of an elderberry and say, they kind of grow the same. Let's see if they do well in here as well. And so this will ideally gradually transition into an even more productive food forest, but it's already a food forest before I even touched it. And now all I'm doing is really selectively adding fertility and removing some of the plants that are less beneficial to me. It's an incredible way to make food fast, and we may all have to be doing that here. We are really coming into food crisis, and the fact is we are surrounded by food. We just need to learn to use it. We need to learn to work with nature, and we need to learn to garden in phases. Realize you don't have to decimate everything and plant from the ground up. You can start with focusing on what's edible around you, save those plants, and then transition into more productive, easy to grow foods, or do a mixture of everything. That's what I'm doing here. Is there's going to be a mixture of natives that produce well for me and a mixture of farming. This is going to be pretty indistinguishable from a big weedy place, but I don't care how it looks. I want my property to produce lots of food. That's what a farm does. It doesn't need to be in pretty rows. And in fact, I think this is more beautiful than monocultures. So just a thought, everyone, look around for the food around you. Identification is farming. Foraging is farming. So let's all get more into that. Everybody, in the meantime, stay safe, be well, and happy homesteading.